بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Line number 63. وبعد موت زينب المقدمة وبعده نكاح السلمة. Thereafter was the death of the forerunner Zainab radiallahu anha, and then was the nikah to Salama radiallahu anha. So these are the events of the 4th year after the hijrah of Rasulullah SAW to Medina Munawwara. So yesterday we touched upon we actually talked about Zainab bint Khuzaym al-Hilaliya. So Rasulullah SAW had two wives that were called Zainab. So the first Zainab is Khuzaym al-Hilaliya. She was known as al-Masakin, Zainab bint Khuzaym al-Hilaliya, the mother of the poor. She's the wife of the Prophet ﷺ. And she already has been mentioned before in the previous line. And Rasulullah SAW was married to her before Hafsa. And Rasulullah SAW, only a few months they managed, she only lived for a very short amount of time, and then radiallahu anha, she passed away. And the ulama, as mentioned, the historians have said about 8 months stayed she after the marriage. She lived with Rasulullah only 8 months until she passed away in the 4th year. The next one, there was a nikah to Salama radiallahu anha, binti Umayyah bin Mughira al-Qurashiyya al-Makhzumiyya. She and her previous husband, became Muslim quite early on. His name was Abu Salama bin Abdul Asad bin Mughira, and they went to Hijrah to Habasha, and she's called Salama because she had a son named Salama. She came back to Makkah, then made Hijrah to Medina Munawwara. She did Hijrah before her husband, and when her husband died, the Prophet ﷺ proposed to her and married her. And it's mentioned that in a hadith in Sahih Muslim that I heard Rasulullah SAW. So her husband actually heard this hadith and told her that to Salama. So Abu Salama told Salama that never does a Muslim afflicted with any calamity except they do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's orders, which is to say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Indeed, to Allah we belong, and to Him is our return. Allahumma jurni fi musibati wa akhlif li khayra minha. And oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reward me in my calamity and replace it with that which is better, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replace it with better. And he said Abu Salama was so good that I couldn't imagine someone better, because who can be better than Abu Salama? And then he was the first house to make hijrah to Rasulullah SAW was their family. And she made the dua anyway, and then after Abu Salama passed away, she made this dua that which Abu Salama had taught her, and she made this dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaced with, definitely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaced with something better, with that which is better, which is Rasulullah SAW. And then the next thing, وَبِنْتُ جَحْشٍ ثُمَّ بَدْرِ الْمَوْعِدِ وَبَعْدَ الْأَحْزَابُ فَاسْمَعْ وَعْدُدِ. And Bint Jahsh, so this is the second wife. So Zainab bint Zainab bint Khuzaym al-Hilaliya. So she passed away radiallahu anha, and Rasulullah married Zainab bint Jahsh radiallahu anha. So, and also at the same time, this appointment of Badr. Now the appointment of Badr is basically there are 3 expeditions related to Badr. We mentioned 2, this is the 3rd and last one, where Rasulullah SAW, basically the Quraysh after Uhud, they basically decided, set a date, alright, we'll face each other again at this time, and this never eventuated. Well, the Quraysh came, but Rasulullah SAW, what he told them was, look, you're in a drought, and you don't have any, your animals are eating the tree leaves like now, because there's no pastures and so forth. So I'm going back, you also go back as well. This is a drought year, so let's hold off hostilities. And the Quraysh accepted and they went back. So this is the appointment at Badr. So it wasn't a battle. It was basically there was a face-off, but there wasn't any actual battle per se. After it was the Ahzab. The Ahzab, Hizb of course means groups. So Ahzab it's a confederate coalition of all the tribes of the Arabs, 10,000 of them. They gathered together to wipe off the Muslim. This was their last big push, and which failed as well. They laid siege, and the famous trench, it's also known as the Battle of Khandaq, the Battle of the Ditch, because a trench was dug, which wasn't a tactic of war that the Quraysh, the Arabs in Arabia generally utilized. It was something that bigger powers of the time, such as the Romans and Persians, employed in their battles, in more sort of large scale trench warfare and trench more sort of standard warfare tactics they used in the big theaters of war. But it didn't. Salman Farsi radiallahu anhu is the one that put his opinion forward to the Prophet ﷺ to utilize this stratagem in battle, and the Prophet ﷺ employed this. So even when the Arab tribes saw it, they were initially they were baffled, bewildered, like, what is this? Like, how are we supposed to deal with this? So the trench was of course dug one side of Medina Munawwara. There was two hills, there's two volcanic tracts or mountains on each side of Medina that protected. So this was to close off one end, and the back was date palms, and there was Yahudi tribes, allies, and they can only come from one direction. So, but it was a failure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent his help, humiliated them. Abu Sufyan was leading that expedition as well against the Muslims at that time, and they failed in their attempts in trying to uproot the Muslims, and that was the sort of turning point, that battle. And at the end he mentioned as listen and reckon or count or take note of these battles. These are the things that, because of these, for as a Muslim, it's extremely important that we are actually aware of this. Deen exists because of these sacrifices. So as Muslims we should be studying these, as mentioned right at the beginning, that these are great historical events, because the deen that will be practiced till the day of Qiyamah, the deen of Islam, the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these are the events in history secured that in the world. They established that in the world. So it's very extremely important. Fasma, listen to these battles and these news that I'm telling you, the Shaykh is saying in the poem. Listen, the battles of Maghazi of Rasulullah SAW, the expeditions of Rasulullah SAW are extreme importance to each Muslim. Wa'adud, and be the dates, the times, the timeline of these should be kept in mind. The Muslim should have a basic structure, which is the poem that offers. An order of things is very important. You understand what came first, what came after, what was more difficult, what was more easier. A Muslim should have this before them at their fingertips. The basic structure of the Maghazi of Rasulullah SAW should be known. ثم بني قريظة وفيهما خلف وفي ذات رقاع علما. Also Banu Qurayza and in these two is difference of opinion of the historians, Muslim historians, and in Zat Raqa was thought. So it's three. The previous poem mentions the Ghazwa Badr, Ghazwa Ahzab. Now it's mentioned Banu Qurayza, which is linked to the Ahzab or Khandaq, and then it mentions Zat Raqa, and there's the ulama in it were thought. That's part of tomorrow's recording, which is certain ahkam were taught to the Muslims. So what is Banu Qurayza? Banu Qurayza is one of the Yahudi tribes. So far we learned about Banu Nadir, Banu Qaynuqa, and this is the last tribe. And they, in the middle of the battle, because they thought no way the Muslims are going to be able to resist 10,000. They were dealing with 1,000, 3,000 the year before, the 2-3 years before. Now you got 10,000, so the Muslims are going to be extremely overwhelmed. So they got no chance. Now's our chance, because they really weren't happy with the Muslims, and they weren't happy with the Prophet ﷺ. So when the Prophet ﷺ, obviously the Muslims are on the ascendancy, and that's bothered them. I mean, they were happy the Arabs were fighting amongst each other, because they were also the weapon sellers to everybody. So the weapon sellers, they make business. War is their business. So the more people are fighting, the more business they're making. It doesn't matter which side wins or loses, and that's what they were doing. So as Islam is spreading around them, all those tribes and villages and towns and they're all now aligned to one thing. They're not fighting amongst each other, especially in Medina Munawwar, the Aus and Khazraj, who fought for generations, and all their fighting is they've exhausted from fighting anyway, and Islam came now, so it's put an end to that. So they have a lot to lose. But anyway, the Banu Qurayza, in the middle of the Battle of Ahzab, when the Muslims try and defend the city, they have a treaty like with the other Jewish tribes before. They're supposed to protect the Muslims from the back, and and vice versa. It was a two-way deal that we protect each other. We're allies. But what happened was that in the middle of it, they were helping, and they're betraying the Muslims, and they're working against the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims. So hence, when the battle of Ditch was over, the Kuffar, basically Mushrikeen, dispersed, and they had disputes amongst each other, and they left. The Prophet ﷺ, he came home, he took off his armor, he had a ghusl, he had a shower, and Jibreel alayhi salam came, and he still got dust, and he still got his armor, and he said, "You have put your weapons down, but I haven't. I swear by Allah, I have not placed my weapons down." And then Rasulullah SAW said, "Then where? Which direction? What?" And he pointed towards the Banu Qurayza, the tribe that they were allies who betrayed them in the middle of the battle. So Rasulullah SAW immediately went out again. So it's part of that campaign, the campaign of Ahzab, the coalition, the extension. It's another expedition, but it is part of the Ahzab, or the Khandaq, the battle of Khandaq. So Rasulullah SAW then hastened them quickly. The Sahaba said, "Don't pray Asr until you're at Banu Qurayza." So some of them, they understood that, took that as a metaphorical, that to go quickly. Others took it literally, said, "No, we're not going to stop. We're not going to pray until we actually get there, literally." And the others said, "No, that was just the Rasulullah SAW meant." So some prayed on the way. We had one Jamaat, and the other ones prayed another Jamaat at the thing. At the end of the day, both were in the same army. They end up in the same, even despite the difference of opinion, they were united as one force. As long as the work is the right work, and the goals are the right work, a small difference of opinion should not be blown out of proportion. So they still arrived at Banu Qurayza, and they still carry out the instruction of Rasulullah SAW. And so Banu Qaynuqa, they were dealt after Badr. Banu Nadir was after Uhud, and now Banu Qurayza after the Battle Ahzab or Khandaq. There is difference of opinion amongst the historians as to these two expeditions. That is Ahzab and Qurayza, Ahzab or Khandaq, and Banu Qurayza, the Battle of Banu Qurayza or the Ghazwa of Banu Qurayza, when exactly when they actually occurred. So there's difference. Is a 4th year or 5th year and so forth, or 3rd year or 4th year. وفي ذات الرقاع, ذات الرقاع literally means the battle of the rags, and the reason for that is the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, and when they mentioned this, they said, "We went out, and we like the ground was so hot, so they were bare feet." He said there was jagged rocks, and it was so hot that we had to wrap rags around our feet. Initially, the battle had a different name. Based on the place where they were sent to, but the name got changed to the Battle of the Rags, and the Sahabi said, "I wish I never told," and he disliked it because I wish that the Sahaba sincerity was so much that they did this battle for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now it's become known, it's become famous because there's a name called the Battle of the Rags. What's the rag? Why is it called the Battle of the Rags? Because the feet, they mentioned that the nails fell out from their feet when they were marching through the desert. The nails fell out. That's how. These are the things. Because of that, we are Muslims today. We take Islam for granted. So these people, they couldn't walk. They couldn't walk through They had to tie rags on their feet. So, but he said, I wish that nothing of this became known to the people, because they're doing it for the sake of Allah. They're not doing it for acknowledgement from any of the creation of Allah. They didn't want to get any fame or name for all these sacrifices that are thing. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as qadr, Allah maybe wanted to honor them in the hearts of the believers, so appreciate what it took for Islam to get established in this world and why we're Muslims. The Imams also in this battle as well, or this expedition, some say that this was after Ibn Qayyim and Ibn Kathir rahmullah said this was after the battle of Khandaq, and that's why the author, he's mentioned this. And so Allahu Alam, but there are differences of opinion when exactly this occurred. The author obviously has chosen a certain, based on his research, the poem, the one who wrote the poem, the Imam Ibn al-Izz rahmullah al-Hanafi rahmullah, says that he put a certain order. So he's chosen a certain order, but also he's made indication وَفِيهِمَا, especially when it comes to Banu Qurayza, فِيهِمَا khulf. So he didn't just say that this is, my view is this and that's leave. No, there is khulf, there's ikhtilaf in this. وَفِي ذَاتُ الرِّقَاعِ عُلِّمَ. Ulima is referring to the next line, some ahkam will be taught, which we'll discuss tomorrow. So you got Banu Qurayza and then you got Dhatu Riqa'. So these are the memories of our deen, the memories of our forefathers in deen, the founders of establishing of deen in this world, in this dunya, and we can never be thankful to them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with all the Sahaba and Sahabiyat radiallahu anhum ajma'een. We owe to them, we'll never be able to pay them. And my late father Sheikh Sayyid Rahmatullah said, people like that will never come on the face of the earth again. And the Prophet ﷺ said that if my Sahaba, they give a handful of grain, people come afterwards, give mountains of gold in charity, and my companions give a handful of grain in sadaqah, the people that can't equal my Sahaba's handful of grain. So it wasn't just about quantity, it was also about quality. Their ikhlas, their sacrifices are unheard of in history, and never like that people will come like that again. That's why Allah chose them to be with the Prophet ﷺ. And that's how deen came into the world, is through sacrifice and giving up the things that you love for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and protecting Rasulullah SAW at all, even if it means giving up your life and all your properties. And Sahaba did that. They lost all their properties. Muhajirin lost everything of this dunya. But what they did was they left a legacy till Qiyamah of deen being established. So what we owe to them, those that come afterwards will never be able to catch up with them. Radiallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with them and fill their graves with nur. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to follow in these footsteps. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.